All right, guys, I really appreciate everybody coming by and joining us for our little shindig, I guess our Valentine's / commercial real estate event. Sort of goes together, right, with Cupid. So I'd be amiss if I didn't take 5 minutes just to do a quick plug for CommLoan, and then we'll go through all the data and all the good stuff. So just really for those of you who've really know a lot about CommLoan already, I apologize, but hey, hopefully you'll pick up something out of it. The birth of CommLoan essentially was a result of the commercial market, as all you guys know, being extremely complex, diverse, lots of different players, lots of different products, and very difficult to ever know who's the best on any particular product, on any particular property class at any point in time. The borrowers have access to limited options just by virtue that, just time permitting, how do you really get to see all the different options available? And the lenders have limited access to quality buyers. We provide the platform that connect them. Now, on the web, there's a bunch of entities that claim to be marketplaces, but essentially what they do is the borrower goes in, fills in a whole lot of information, then a whole bunch of lenders can go and access that information, and then they get a call from 1, 2, 5, 8 lenders who say, yeah, I'd like to see your loan. A, is that lender a great fit? B, is that the best lender that for their particular situation? And then the borrower still has to deal with 5 or 6 lenders. What we've really tried to do is focus on the borrower experience to ensure that the borrower gets the equivalent experience if they were sitting down with their favorite broker or favorite banker, that they have that concierge service. So they deal with maximum 2 people at CommLoan, initially up front, whoever's the credit manager who's ever structuring the loan, and then the credit analyst who's working the loan. And then we submit fully processed packages with all the information within that package that truly the lender can make a credit decision on the transaction. So just a quick overview, we started in 2014. First couple of years, we were just trying to figure out how to make the system work, so it was all the programming, the development. We have a full-time team in India still to this day that have been with us since 2014. We have in excess of 400 lenders on the system, which represents tens of thousands of loan programs, probably hundreds of thousands of loan programs, because every time one variable changes, that's a new program. We've already processed probably close to $750 million worth of transactions. And we've got obviously our platform, which is patent pending and has come an enormously long way since its inception. Like any platform you started, you look at the giant, look at Amazon. Look at Amazon now to what they were 10 years ago. It's a totally different platform, right? So as they refine the borrower experience, the buyer experience in their case, they tweak it to ensure that they're keeping abreast, and that's what we've done. As we've gone along, we look at areas, how can we make it better for the borrower, for the lender, and make us more efficient. Because at the end of the day, guys, we're on the baby slopes as far as where we want to be. We really want to redefine the process, how commercial real estate loans are originated and processed within the commercial space, which we've already made some inroads. So from the lender's perspective, the borrower, we provide for really cool tools. They have a portal that they can work from, and we'll pull up an extra couple of chairs for Kurt and his group. Come on in, Kurt. So the borrower has really some very cool tools that they can work from. We give them a portal where they can track the status of their loan, update their documents, download documents, upload forms, etc. As well as obviously the lenders can track how they're doing in relation to other lenders on our platform. Obviously these are some of the lenders we have on the platform. These are just some of the private label partners we have on our platform. So really looking at the experience, why CommLoan? If the borrower sort of goes it alone, they've got maybe 3 to 4 lenders they can work with, which is practically maybe 5. Broker can have maybe access to 10 to 15. At CommLoan, literally hundreds of thousands of loan programs. Very time consuming. Our system, within minutes, we get the best match for the borrower. So it's very low effort compared to the rest. These are just a sample of some of the transactions we've already closed. And I guess that's the 3-minute pitch or 4-minute pitch. So now we're really going to come into the heart of it, and I guess why you guys came here. Firstly, wanting kudos to Adrian, who's sitting behind there working the camera. He is our senior data analyst and just works absolute magic with numbers. So besides having access to everything that CoStar would have, etc., which we have internally within our database, as far as market values and cap rates and all that good stuff, we're in a very unique position by having so many lenders on our system, is to see how different groupings of lenders are going to track in relation to each other and how they track in relation to cap rates, and really just get some interesting trends on how things are going. And I think what's very topical, and David will get into this in a lot more detail, is really we're living through an interesting time, right? Stock market, 2,000 point drop last week. Everybody, oh my God! But the reality, why did it drop as much? It's just because the economy is doing great, and there's really choices as far as where money can go. So there's obviously enormous concerns. Interest rates are going up, and as will be illustrated with David, it's every type of index, or every index, whether it's the treasuries or the T-bills or whatever the case might be, you're going to see every index is tracking up, and they're going to track up at different times. But the reality, there's competition there's a finite amount of capital, and either the capital is going to be in the bond market, or it's going to be in the stock market, or various other places. So what you're having is a realignment where I think a lot of money is now shifting potentially into the bond market because of the perception of higher interest rates. All the fundamentals are phenomenal. I mean, unemployment's at a 45-year low, and the growth numbers are meant to be spectacular. So I think there's enormous opportunity for all of us in this room with regards to commercial real estate and where commercial real estate is going to go. It's really going to be pretty volatile, and we've been through a very stagnant period over the last several years, but it's been stagnant from an interest rate point of view, but just generally things have been, I think we're really going through going to be a lot more volatile but a lot more exciting time, and those that use data, use technology, and really have that competitive edge, I think there's phenomenal opportunity. So I've said enough. David, thanks.
Cool. All right, so there's as Mitch was talking about, there's a couple main data sources that we have access to. We have market data, which Adrian helps bring to bear. We also have our own origination data, which is the loans that we're originating every year. So looking at 2017, we had 449 requests for a total of 1.4 billion transactions that we had coming into CommLoan. That breaks down to 75% are coming from investors, 25% are coming from owner users. As far as the property types that we see the most of, right now, over the last year, it's 37% is coming from multifamily, so that's by far our most popular property type. But we're still seeing a lot of transactions from the other core property types, so we're still getting a lot of business from retail, industrial, hotels. So for the sake of our case study, we're going to look at multifamily, just because we do get a lot from multifamily. One of the trends that we're seeing right now is borrowers are looking for longer-term financing. So to start out the year, in the first quarter of 2017, we had 3 out of every 4 requests coming in were looking for 5-year or longer money. That actually continued to increase in quarter 4, where 7 out of 8 of the borrowers that we're working with are looking for 5 years or longer. So the borrowers are looking at either a longer time horizon for their project if they're an investor, or if it's an owner user, they're just wanting to lock down low interest rates as best as they can. So the case study that we want to jump into, and I know a lot of you guys work different property types, so we'll be able to, on the next one or at any point, you guys want to kind of go through this analysis, we'd be happy to do it. But for today, we're going to look at multifamily. We're going to look at a typical leverage point, which is 75% loan to value. And we'll look at 3 main statistics. So the first we're going to look at is the actual capitalization rates, what's happening here in the Phoenix market and multifamily over the last year. And then we're going to look at what's happening to the actual debt prices. And then last, we want to translate it to something that's going to be interesting for you guys and the investors that you work with. So we want to see what's the cash on cash return once you put the leverage in place. So starting out with multifamily, as you guys all know, the multifamily cap rates continue to compress. We have We started out the year at in the high 6s, and right now we're just under 6%, and that's looking across all the different classes and size transactions. This is going to show you the change in debt prices across different capital sources. So we have the three main different capital sources for multifamily. We have banks, CMBS, and agency. You can see what's really interesting here is at any given point throughout the year, each capital source kind of had its time where it was really the best place to go as far as the lowest rate. Obviously there's other considerations you have to make around the fees, but at any given point, you can see, like, for example, in the very first half of the year that the banks were by far the best place for multifamily debt for 5-year, and the banks were quicker to increase their pricing, and over the last half of the year, agency has had the lowest rate possible. Where we think it's something to pay attention to is obviously that spread between the capitalization rates and the actual cost of financing. We think it's going to be continuing more and more important that investors are looking for the lowest possible rate. So just in general, the way that we wanted to translate that, and so the scenario that we put together here is just using a constant 6% cap rate, and we translated it to cash-on-cash return by looking at no principal repayment. So we're just looking at interest only for the first year. What's the cash-on-cash return that you can get based on debt prices, depending on where you finance? So you can see at any given point, in November we had the biggest difference here. With a 55 basis points better rate, that actually translates to 143 basis points improvement to the cash-on-cash return. So it obviously makes a big difference that I mean, everyone knows that you want to get the cheapest debt possible, but it is pretty hard to keep track of it, and that's where we want to be a valuable resource to you guys, to your clients, to be able to tell you at any given point what would be available on that property when you're building an offering memorandum or just in general as an investor. The last thing that we talked to some brokers about is, well, like if I'm just looking at the newspaper, what are some of the drivers of interest rates? So a lot of times people think that the federal funds announcements might make an effect on the interest rates. So last year we had 3 months where they announced an increase. It was in March, June, and December. And as you can see, there's not much of a correlation there. The rates already have the announcements baked in. So if it comes out in the news that there's an announcement happening, it's not likely that you're going to see a big jump in pricing. What we found is a much better indicator right now to track is the Treasury. Lines up pretty well. So that's not always the case. Sometimes, every lender is using an index plus a spread when they're calculating their pricing. And a lot of times, if an index is going up, sometimes the credit spread is tightening, and so you end up with the same coupon. But what we actually saw last year is that it tracks very closely. So if you look at banks, well, just across the board, the Treasury stayed flat and went down slightly, and so did most of the different lenders that we work with. And then we saw obviously a big shoot up since August on the 5-year Treasury, and we see the banks were the quickest to react, and agency is increasing their pricing right now, and we expect agency to continue to go up. And then one thing we will say about this, like the banks, for example, we had to just use the top 25%. So in last year we did finance an apartment at 3.7%. So we do have, even within banks, a big variation between what pricing they're offering, where they're most aggressive. So just be aware of that. And then the agency, we just stuck with one product type, but there are some differences between Fannie and Freddie at any given point who's going to be able to offer the best.
Right, good. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
So I think really, guys, what this illustrates is, I mean, at any point in time, things are all over the place. I mean, this was just looking at one example, at one loan to value, one property class, over a 12-month period. Now you overlay that every possible property class from industrial to retail to multifamily, et cetera, and then through the whole range of occupancy levels, through whether it's owner occupied or investment, which then owner occupied would bring in all the SBA products, et cetera. It's impossible, A, for any individual to sort of keep track of it, B, for a broker, with all due respects, to be able to really keep their hands on the best opportunities. But with technology, that redefines it. And almost the best analogy is when you looked at the travel industry many, many years ago, you had a whole bunch of travel agents out there, and they had relationships with various airlines and hotels, and that's who people went to. Because you got your trip, but was it the best? Probably not, because that's who they had access. And that's typically where your typical mortgage broker is today, because it's humanly impossible unless they specialize in a particular property class and they can get really good at that and that's all they do. Yeah, absolutely. I think it possibly could make sense. But if you want to try and be a generalist and cover all different property classes, and whether it's investment or owner occupied, you have to use technology. So we just feel very, very excited about being able to take advantage of this and provide this as a service to you guys. Real quick, I'll take 2 minutes. We're going to run through just to show you how quickly it works within our system. So the borrower calls in, will actually work with the credit manager, who will then input this data. Recognizing that this is a very technical product, we don't want the borrower out there trying to figure out how to fill in this form. So we fill it in. So from a borrower's perspective, they still have a live person counseling with them on how to structure the deal, but we have access to this enormous database of current information. So a lot of our rates are linked to indexes. So as the index moves, the pricing moves. We've got special formulas that have been developed on the CMBS pricing, which tracks, depending on the loan to value, etc. So once again, just using technology, we're really able to become very, very accurate, within 15 basis points or so of where the actual pricing is at any time, as well as the lenders updated. So look at an example. We capture borrower information, very straightforward. So this, once again, just staying on the multifamily theme, we've got a multifamily here in Phoenix, and we've got, it's not owner occupied, we plug in the NOI. Once again, that's an NOI number that we get from either the agent that's working with them or the borrower. We will validate that number afterwards before it goes to the lender and back it up by the actual financials and the T12s or the T3s or whatever we're going to be basing it on. We got a purchase, that's the purchase price. The beauty on our system, we can add multiple properties in, so we could do a shopping center in LA, a multifamily in Phoenix, and a hotel in Denver, and we say we want one loan and one lender to cover it all, and based on those variables we'll find a lender that'll lend on those 3 property classes in those 3 different locations, which is pretty exciting. We then just select the type of lenders we want to look at, the loan to value. We then say, all right, we want a minimum 5-year period, 5-year maturity, and a minimum amortization. And just for illustration, we're going to look at a recourse loan, so we fill in all the guarantors information. These are all underwriting variables that the system's going to look at. So if we change any one of those variables, so now the system's going to look for every lender at one of those variables and eliminate until they get the matches. So we run the pricing engine, and what it's really looking at now is about 100,000 records and eliminating. And obviously we've eliminated the high ones first, so probably geographic area gets eliminated first, and then we'll go to it'll work down. So okay, we got it. So we've got like 211 results. So now we can further sort while working with the borrower according to rate in ascending order, and we can go 4 levels deep. So maybe just points. Let's just do 2 levels, and we're done. And we hit OK. So now it's going to sort the results. So it really is an unbelievably efficient way of getting to the best possible results for that particular borrower as it sorts out according to those variables. And sorry, our Wi-Fi is obviously running a little slow here. So and then we just select. We just select the top 6 that's going to work best for that borrower. Talking with the borrower, figuring out what makes the most sense for them, for their investment needs. Is it a longer hold, a shorter hold, whatever the case might be, and we come up with the 6 top loans. We're almost there. Yes.
Yep, I think we're good.
We've got 6. Great. We select them all, and this just shows you a process that would take, typically trying to do this manually, it would take weeks. Select the 6, and then it basically will generate a pre-qualification certificate, which then goes to the borrower, and the borrower can download in their portal. So just really a very streamlined, quick process, and as a result, we can iron out the uncertainty, I guess, of those fluctuations in rates, and the banks on top, and then the CMBS is on top, and then the agencies on top. But and then we can shuffle it and move it around, and this ultimately what the borrower gets with their pre-qual. So, guys, we've taken up. Well, I guess we're pretty much on track. We wanted this to be no more than 20 minutes, so it was 20 minutes. We're going to be able to run debt quotes for anybody if they want, or run through a pre-qual on another property class or whatever. We've got a couple of different stations set up. Just grab one of us and we'll run it. Really appreciate your time, appreciate you coming, and let's go drink and eat and have fun. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Oh, you got some. Oh, right.